Hi, I'm John Munro from Long White Cloud Qigong. The topic of this presentation is going to be mastering your emotions through 5-element sound practice. The format of the session is going to be that I'll start by talking a little bit about our emotions and how valuable it is for us to master them. I'll then talk about some of the principles of the practice that I'm going to do in this session, and then I'll lead you through a 5-element sound practice. During that part of the session, you're welcome, if you prefer, to just listen to the presentation and get an understanding of it that way. But if you're comfortable, I'd really highly encourage you to follow along with the practice so you can feel for yourself how it works. That will give you a richer experience if you choose to do this practice in the future yourself. So firstly, what are our emotions and why is it important that we master them? Our emotions can bring us so much joy in life. In fact, that's one of the names that we give to one of our emotions, joy. But at the same time, if we don't master our emotions, they can lead to a lot of pain, discomfort, and even physical illness. And because of this, a lot of people sometimes shy away from allowing their emotions to have the full power and gaining the full benefit that they could from them in their lives. Often people don't really understand what an emotion is either. Sometimes people think of emotions as something that is in their head, but we have a different name for that. We call those thoughts. And certainly our thoughts do play a significant role within our emotions, but they are not the emotion themselves. Our emotions occur inside our body. They are visceral, meaning they are of the organs. They occur inside our organs, and then they affect other parts of our body as well, our muscles, our connective tissue, and so on. When we experience something in life, in the environment around us, this is where our thoughts come into play. So there's an actual thing that we experience, but then with our thoughts, with our perception, we interpret what that means for us. With that interpretation, our body then responds and changes its activity so that we can deal with whatever it is that is occurring in our environment. So, for example, if we are fearful of something, our body releases adrenaline. And it does this to activate our nervous system so that we're going to be able to pay more attention to whatever that thing we're fearful of is. So that's a useful response. If we're angry about something, our body releases cortisol into our bloodstream to give us a surge of energy so that we can do something about whatever it is we're angry about. In connection with this release of hormones, different organs become more active for different emotions as well. Some of them make our heart beat faster. Some of them stimulate production of urine. So that all of these different changes occur inside our body, inside our organs. And those feelings, those sensations we get from those physical changes inside our body are what we actually call emotions. Now, our thoughts have played an important role in shaping our interpretation of what's going on in our environment. And so they're definitely connected to our emotions. And that's why sometimes we can get those mixed up a little bit. And working with our thoughts can be a valuable way for us to start to have more mastery of our emotions. But there's another side to this as well, where we can work actually with what's going on physically inside our bodies so that we don't allow any of that energy from emotions to become excessive, to become blocked or stuck within our body. And then we're able to use that energy from the emotions in a more effective way. Our emotions at a deep level are the thing that give us energy to move through life. So emotion, energy in motion. Without emotion, there isn't the drive, the power, the pleasure, the vibrancy, the motivation to our actions. So when we use our emotions well, when we master them, it can lead to a lot more power within our lives that we can use in useful, beneficial ways. So hopefully that's a good introduction to how we'll be looking at emotions within the session today as something physical within our body that we can work with without necessarily needing to engage in the thoughts around them, but rather just work with the physical effect within our body so that that energy can flow more freely. One thing that comes from this, and you'll see this as I talk about some of it as we go through the practice, is when we recognize that our emotions are primarily a physical response, we can then also start to recognize that we can actually interpret what that physical response means and what we're going to do with that energy. Emotions are not just something that happen to us, they are something that we create inside, that we mobilize inside, energy that becomes active, and we can choose how we then move with that energy. What we're going to be doing in the practice is we'll be making 5 different sounds. One that relates to each of the primary elements and connected to that one of our primary organs within our system. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the yin organs, the solid organs. As we make these sounds, we'll place our hands on the surface of our body above each of those organs so we can feel the way that the vibration moves inside us as we make the sounds. We can think of the way our body produces sound with our voice as being similar to a guitar. A guitar has strings which are tuned and pulled tight so they'll make different sounds, different frequencies of vibrations. But the guitar also has a body that creates the resonance of that sound. If you have a guitar with just strings and pluck those strings, the sound is not going to sound very good or be very powerful. Instead, it relies on the body to create that resonance and to shape the overall quality of that sound. It's the same when we produce our voice in our body. We have our vocal cords up here in our throat, and they are the primary driver that makes the sound of our voice. But then that's also shaped by the rest of our body. And as we make different sounds, our body braces in different ways to send the vibration to different parts of our body in order to activate and help the energy move through that part of the body. This then becomes instinctive to us. And so we find that instinctively there are different sounds associated with different emotions. And the reason is these different sounds naturally send the vibration to the organ that relates to that emotion so that the energy doesn't just get stuck and sit there, but rather with the vibration, that energy is able to get into motion and move through, and then we can direct it effectively. So the first one that we're going to work with is the kidneys. And the emotion that we often refer to for the kidneys, or the way we name this response, is often fear. I'm just going to give you a little demonstration here first to illustrate the idea that we actually have a choice of how we interpret this physiological response. And that can be really useful in shaping the way we move the energy of it through. So I'm going to step away from the camera. And you can imagine here, there is actually a line on the floor, but you probably can't see it on the video. But if you can imagine, there's a line on the floor here. And we can think that maybe this is a cliff edge. So as I walk up to the edge of the cliff, maybe I look down. And if I'm fearful, if I'm scared of heights, what is my physiological response going to be? I'm going to look down and I might do something like this. Have a sharp intake of breath, a squeezing in my spine, maybe a raising of my shoulders, a widening of my eyes. And we interpret all of that as fear. Like, this is me being fearful. Like, that's something to be scared of. Alternatively, if instead, as I approach this cliff, maybe my background is different, I'm thinking about things differently. Maybe I'm a base jumper. If you don't know what a base jumper is, that's someone who attaches a parachute to their back, and instead of jumping out of a plane, they find high things to jump off and they enjoy it. They think it's a lot of fun. So they go and they jump off tall buildings, or sometimes they'll jump off cliffs and things like that, and they will float their way down to the ground. So if I'm a base jumper and I walk up to the edge of this cliff, what is my physiological response going to look like? Very similar to if I was scared of heights. There's a little squeeze at the base of my spine that sends energy up through my nervous system, maybe a little raising of my shoulders, a sharp intake of breath, my eyes widen, because instead of being fearful, I'm excited about this cliff. Internally, it's very much the same physiological response. That squeeze at the base of my spine is coming because the adrenal glands sit right on top of the kidneys, like right on top of them. And so when my body wants to release adrenaline into my system, it stimulates the adrenal glands. It also squeezes the kidneys. They get activated at the same time. These are sitting at the base of the spine. That then sends energy with that squeezing up through the spinal cord to give more alertness. This is why my eyes widen so I can pay attention. Paying attention is useful if I'm fearful, but it's also useful if I'm excited. It's useful if I think, oh, I'm going to have to run away from this, but it's also useful if I think, I want to run towards this, so I can notice the details of what's going on. When we start to understand that, it puts us in a much more powerful position to be able to work with that energy instead of thinking the emotion has happened to us, to realize that we can shape what we do with it and we can choose to use that energy in a way that is useful and healthy for us. All right, let's get into the practice part now. So I'm going to move my chair back a little so you're going to be able to see what I'm doing with my hands a bit more easily as we go through this. I'll change the camera angle a little bit there as well. And get a little closer. I think that will work quite well. So as I mentioned, the first one we're going to work with is the kidneys, which relates to the water element and the emotion of fear. We're going to go through each of these one by one, and I'll talk in a little bit of detail as we go through so that you can understand the principles. And then at the end, we'll go through all of these sounds again so you can just practice them and feel them and see what it does within you. So, what sound are we going to use for the kidneys and the emotion of fear? If you think of the sound that someone makes when they're very fearful, and again, this applies whether they're very excited as well, they make the same sound or a very similar one. Maybe think of a small child when they are very fearful or very excited. They make a high-pitched sound. Now, we don't need to necessarily make the sound high-pitched, but the type of sound that naturally rises and moves up to a high pitch is E. That E sound naturally squeezes around those kidneys and sends the energy up the spine, up the spinal cord. So that's the sound we're going to make for our kidneys. We'll place our hands on our kidneys so we can see and feel more than see, the vibration as we make the sound. Now, I will let you know, as we go through each of these 5 sounds, working with the 5 yin organs, some of them you will feel more clearly than others. And this is natural because of maybe what's been going on within your body, within your emotions over, the last period of time for yourself. Some of them will vibrate more easily, some not so easily. And so don't expect necessarily to feel all of them strongly, but I'm pretty confident that you'll feel at least some of these vibrations quite clearly within the individual organs as we go through them. So we're going to repeat the sound 3 times. It doesn't have to be high-pitched, and I want you to see if you can feel that vibration inside your body or even with your hands as you place them in your lower back in the area of your kidneys. So we'll take a deep breath in. Actually, hang on, before we go too far, I realize the way I'm making this video, I need to change the sound settings or it's not going to let you hear me making the sound. So I will change that now so it doesn't noise cancel out this long sound I'm going to make. Let's do that now. Placing your hands on your kidneys, deep breath in, Maybe you can feel a little vibration there in your kidneys. If not, that's okay. We're going to repeat it again. 2 more times. Deep breath in. One more time. Deep breath in. Maybe you could feel that vibration, maybe you couldn't. Either way is fine. Again, I'm sure you'll feel it with at least some of the sounds we're going to make. If we were holding tension around our kidneys from the stimulation of the adrenal glands though, that vibration will help to loosen that up and allow that energy to flow through so we don't become stuck with the energy of that emotion. Next, we'll move to the liver. So this relates to the wood element. This is on the right-hand side of our body. The liver is pretty big. It goes all the way from one side, it comes across to the other, but it's bigger on the right-hand side than the left-hand side because it's kind of triangular in shape. So we put our hands towards the bottom of our ribs here. We're going to do this sound in 3 steps. We're not going to do it all at once. We're going to refine it little by little. The primary emotion of the wood element is often referred to as anger. Now, what's a sound that people instinctively make when they're angry? Often they might growl. So we're going to start with a growling sound. We're going to go grrr. Before we make that sound though, let's understand again the alternative. We could interpret this physiological response inside our body differently. Again, this relates to the release of cortisol that then has an effect on the liver, so it releases glycogen, blood sugar, into our bloodstream. So we have a surge of energy to do something about something we're angry about. But what do we get angry about? We only get angry about things that we care about, right? So this surge of energy, we can think of it as anger, but equally, it could also be enthusiasm, passion, a surge of energy to do something about something we care about. When we understand it in that way, we're much more likely to use that surge of energy in a way that's healthy for us and healthy for others around us as well. And we're less likely to suppress it and allow it to become blocked inside us. If that energy does get blocked inside us, working with the sound is going to help us to vibrate that and allow it to move through in a healthy way. So we're going to start with the sound grrr and see if we can feel the vibration in our liver from that, and then we'll refine it in 2 stages. So here we go. Deep breath in. Grrr. Maybe you can feel that vibration, but maybe it's a bit sort of rough and lumpy, right? So let's see if we can make it finer, a smoother vibration. We're going to instead make the sound So it's still got a little bit of that, but we're smoothing it out now. Here we go. Deep breath in. A finer vibration, massaging our liver, letting the energy move through it. We can make it even finer again. Instead of the sound we'll make the sound air. Let's try that. Deep breath in. And maybe you can feel that vibration becoming finer, releasing any tension we may have held around our liver. from that surge of energy, or maybe some surges of energy we've had, but we haven't been able to let them go. Maybe instead of moving through as passion, they've become frustration. Let's let that energy move through. Next, we'll work with the fire element, the heart. Now, the primary emotion for the heart we often refer to as joy. So what's a sound that we instinctively make when we're joyful? Well, one is often people will make an ah sound when they feel joy. Ah, right? Or in a stronger version, sometimes they laugh. Ha 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 ha. And that ah sound specifically sends the vibration to our heart. So if we've got any excess of energy here, maybe a deficiency of energy, maybe the energy is stuck, an ah will help that to move through. So we'll place our hands on the area of our heart. Deep breath in. Ah. Again, deep breath in. Maybe you can feel that vibration. Many people can feel the heart, the strongest of all of the organs. One more time, deep breath in. All right. Next one that we're going to work with is the earth element, and the organ is the spleen. Now this one's a little harder to find. It's on the left side. It's inside our ribs on the left side, but it's quite a small organ, and so its vibration is much more precise. Sometimes you might need to move your hands around to find where it's vibrating from the sound we're going to make. The primary emotion of the earth element is often referred to as worry. So what's a sound that people make when they're worried? Often they might say something like, uh-oh. So there's that oh, oh. This relates to stability. And if that oh vibrates, it's reflecting instability or worry. On the other hand, when something is resolved, once there's a sense of settling that energy, we make the same sound. But it becomes more of an oh, a releasing of energy from the earth element. So here we go. Again, you might need to move your hands around a little bit for this one, but we're going to make a nice long oh. Deep breath in. Oh. Again, if you couldn't find this one, maybe try adjusting your hand position a little bit. It's a little bit like sonar. By moving our hands around, we can find the bit that's vibrating, which is our spleen. So 2 more times. Deep breath in. Oh. One more time. Deep breath in. So the last element and the last yin organ we're going to work with is the lungs. Now, we can place our hands quite high on our chest to find part of our lungs. We could also put them to the side of our ribs, fairly high, to find our lungs as well. So you can choose which of those is comfortable for you. The emotion of the metal element is often referred to grief. This is the process of releasing, of letting go, of clearing out what's not needed and keeping what's valuable. So a sound that we make instinctively in some situations of this is ooh, as in chew, where there's that releasing, clearing out, or ooh, get that out of me, right? And this vibrates our lungs quite well. So again, choose your hand position. We'll make the sound ooh 3 times. Deep breath in. Again, deep breath in. One more time. Deep breath in. So we've done 5 sounds for each of the 5 elements, the primary yin organs, the primary emotions. We can also make a 6th sound, which is really useful. It helps to harmonize all of these together. This vibrates right through the space of all of the organs, and the sound is mm. So we'll do that one now as well. Deep breath in. Again, deep breath in. One more, deep breath in. And once you've completed making all of the sounds, it's quite beneficial to simply sit in silence and notice the changes within your body, within your energy, from all of that massaging vibration that has moved through your organs. And you often find that as the energy in the organs changes, our perception in our mind changes as well. Things that have been stuck, that were connected to certain types of thoughts, are now able to release and move through. And then that means we're able to embrace the experience of life more fully. Instead of being stuck with an emotion, with energy from something that maybe happened some time ago and isn't relevant to us anymore, we're able to respond more effectively, more richly to what we're experiencing right now. So I hope you've enjoyed this 5-element sound practice. I'm not sure if I have time to go through it one more time. If I do, I will. I'll add that on now. But either way, I hope you'll play with this practice. Give it a try. It can be really useful for shifting stuck emotions and starting us in a direction of starting to have more control, more mastery of our emotions that can support us in every area of our life.